Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Radiohead called 2 + 2 = 5, and if we switch over to here, this has been recommended by Jacob Wrestlegold. Apparently this is one of the most accessible Radiohead songs to headbang to, which I'm looking forward to, as I sometimes have a bit of a difficult time understanding these tracks. Just in case anyone at the end of this video thinks that I haven't necessarily understood it, I'm letting you know in advance I might not, but we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. 2 + 2 = 5, let's go. Oh, I like the sound design, the glitchiness to it. Very blunt with that percussion in the center.
Are you such a dreamer to put the world to rights? I stay home forever, but 2 and 2 always makes a 5. I'll lay down the tracks, sandbag and hide. January has April showers, and 2 and 2 always makes a 5.
And the beautiful harmonies to resolve on.
It's the devil's way now. There's no way out. You can scream, you can shout. It is too late now. Because that might be meditation, 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 meditation. Yeah, I might be your meditation, 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 meditation. Yeah, I might be your paying attention, paying attention, paying attention, paying attention. Yeah, I might be meditation, meditation, meditation,
So that was 2 + 2 = 5. I gotta admit, it went by really quickly, but we're gonna talk about this track more in the conclusion. But just before we get into the actual the conclusion, I just want to have a look through the lyrics, just so that people understand that I've made an effort here, because there was a lot going on in that track. You know, are you such a dreamer to put the world to rights? Oh, so it means like how to solve society's problems. I'll stay home forever where 2 and 2 always makes a 5. So is it almost saying that we're sort of suspicious of people that are trying to make the world better by discussing it, would rather live in confusion? So the person who's saying this, their world clearly doesn't make sense. They're putting, laying down a track, sandbag and hide. They're potentially saying they'd rather just be at home where things don't make sense because it's harder to imagine things making sense. It's the devil's way now. There is no way out. You can scream and you can shout. It is too late now because you have not been paying attention. Okay, so basically, it's either the dreamer hasn't been paying attention to how kind of messy things have gotten. So therefore, trying to find a way of solving things at this point is kind of redundant because they have not been paying attention. Maybe the arrogance asserted at the start is saying, you thought, how dare you think you can fix things at this point? I don't really know how to take the outro. It could be interpreted as when they talk about sing along, but getting it all wrong. It's either that they're singing along the way the best they can, but nothing they can do is right. So therefore, it's not worth trying. And that's just too difficult to try and imagine a way it could work. See, the thing about Radiohead is I feel stupid reading this because they don't really give you a lot more. Like, I'm trying to take it on their level. I understand that people love Radiohead, and I respect that. But I listen to this, and I don't want them to spell it out for me like a child. But because the lyrics are so vague, or there are not connections between certain lines, it's almost like someone's having some sort of episode, which maybe is literally it. Maybe it is meant to represent someone having an episode at the end, realizing just how screwed things are. But when I read, don't question my authority or put me in a box because I'm not, that doesn't make sense. Like, as an actual sentence structure, that doesn't make sense. I understand it if we're simply just reprehensibly trying to avoid any conversation about the situation, whatever. But when I read, go and tell the king that the sky is falling in, but it's not, that kind of makes sense because you're telling the person something even though it doesn't. But then you're not even sure necessarily that it isn't. So therefore, you've completely lost yourself. You don't know what's real and what's not anymore. When they say, I try and sing along, but I get it all wrong, is that when they are, laying down the track Sandbag and Hide, when they're, stay home forever? Is it that we're just simply too unintelligent to understand a situation we're in? At the end, we thought it was better to stay home, but we're not even safe in our homes? Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Radiohead, titled 2 + 2 = 5. Now, again, as I usually would have seen in the lyrics section, this is not a straightforward track in terms of the lyrics. You can take one verse at face value, again with the "Are you a dreamer to put the world to rights? I'll stay home forever, 2 and 2 makes 2." And then I kind of get it until the bridge. And so now I'm actually having a look at the about section to sort of like understand it better, just because I want to confirm this because I feel stupid. Its title references the slogan 2 + 2 = 5 from George Orwell's 1984. Okay, so it was a reference to 1984 for sure, as I mentioned before. Or as I might not have mentioned, because I think I cut everything after I said, what is this track about, exasperatedly. The song's subtitle was taken from Dante's Inferno. York explained that according to Dante, the lukewarm are the people who don't give a fuck. The lukewarm are on the edge of the Inferno, cruising around near the gates, but they can't actually get out. They're like, what are we doing here? We didn't do anything at all. And in Dante's eyes, that's exactly why you're here. You did fuck all, you just let it happen. I mean, like, I understand it from the perspective of, they are the person who is just staying in their home where 2 + 2 = 5. But the thing that kind of confused me a little bit, if they're aware that it doesn't make sense, would this situation only work if they didn't know it didn't make sense? Like, the thing that kind of distracted me is that they're saying, I'll stay home forever. That makes sense. So they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're saying that the person criticizing those who are trying to put the world to rights. That makes sense to me because that's sort of the caricature of someone who is completely apathetic. And there's a lot of that happening today where people are just so milquetoast with the current political situation, a lot of situations, that they don't want to do anything. That people who don't vote, people who just are they just don't want anything to do with it. They just want to sit in their hole. I understand it. Sandbag and hide. I understand it from that perspective. Just the thing that put me off where 2 and 2 always makes a 5 is that would it not make sense to those people to do that? Why would they be doing that if it didn't make sense to them? Why would people be hiding if they were confused? That's just kind of what confused me lyrically, I suppose. Then you've got it's the devil's way now. There is no way out. You can scream and you can shout. It's too late now. Which makes sense because, again, you're in hell. That's Dante's Inferno. So we literally are in hell. I get that. That makes sense. I was thinking it was a metaphor, but if it is based on Dante's Inferno, then there you go. This is stuff that you don't know unless you literally have it from the vocalist's mouth because you're just guessing otherwise. And that's cool. But now I feel vindicated for not understanding it, because how could I have known that from listening to it? It's like you only get the full context in a song like this from actually listening to the person tell you what it's about. It's so antithetical. I need to express this caveat. I'm not complaining or saying it's badly written. It's just I hate the feeling of being dumb when I listen to a song. I hate when I cannot understand what a track is about by listening to the words and hearing the music. Because the 99.99 billion infinity times out of 10, whatever the hell one number is above that, it's that people blame the reviewer for not putting enough effort into figuring it out. I don't know why I should have to go outside of the song to understand that. If it's not clear what's a metaphor and what's real, what is it? But we're meeting the track at its level. So in the fact that it's about 1984 and Dante's Inferno, makes complete sense to me. In that regard, I think that it's really cool. I think that that's a really well told story. So if you're writing an angry comment in response to what I've said just 30 seconds ago, you've missed this part, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Sorry if I upset you by my feedback on it as part of a transparent review. Maybe not. So yeah, I get it. So we're going to actually get back to going part. We know what the track is about now. It's about people who are just, they don't understand why they're in the hell they're in, but they don't do anything to change it. That's cool. I mean, I think there's an audience of people who will be able to relate to that and understand that perspective. I feel like it's effective music that's meaningful in this day and age as well. We have not been paying attention to how ineffective, how apathetic people are becoming, except we have been paying attention to how apathetic we've becoming because we have these lower voter turnouts and everything like that. We're aware of it. I think the literal reason that we are so apathetic is because we've had too much stuff to pay attention to. There's too much stuff that is overwhelming us, almost to a point where I don't blame people for wanting to put their heads in the sand. I think the only people that cannot understand why someone would want to do this are people that have not gone through that level of difficulty where they want to do that. Or alternatively, more rarely, it's the people that have gone through that, understand it's still more important, and have the strength at that specific point in time to be able to do so, or the support network. I feel like this is just an incredibly unsympathetic response to people, some of the people, I suppose, who genuinely are either not, they just don't know enough. It's assuming that everyone is as intelligent as everyone else and that everyone has an equal ability to understand a perspective. That is literally one of the biggest misnomers in our entire existence. We have so many variables and so many different life experiences and so many different capacities and capabilities that to insinuate that it's just a generalized issue of not giving a fuck is just such, this is not what, I suppose I've got to give credit to Radiohead. I don't usually go on this kind of talk with these situations, but I feel like it's a good thing to sort of do. I think it's really well written. At face value, it's an incredibly well-written track lyrically because it's gotten me talking as much about it. Unless it's a visceral sort of like response from me as someone who doesn't like to do it, I nonetheless appreciate it. Just don't be upset that I'm spending this long talking about this. You know, people consider these review videos most of the time as reaction videos, so you got your reaction. I haven't read 1984, but I probably need to. I would understand this situation better now. I just haven't gotten around to it. I feel that the vocals are great. It's very distinctive of Radiohead vocalists like Tom York's vocal style. They're very comfortable in their range. They don't just stay in the same range the entire time. They switch it up occasionally, go into the falsetto head voice in certain parts. They put different tracks around the sides of the stereo field, that's cool. I like the kind of like angelic falsetto or angelic head voice that we have with some really beautiful harmonies. It's very easy to listen to. I didn't get all the words clear though, which is part why I initially wanted to go through the lyrics section. And I think the softness belies the intensity or the heaviness of a lot of the subject matter that's being sort of put forward here, which is why it's further a little bit confusing. I understand the perspective of trying not to be too blunt or on the nose about it, but I think it's almost like it's challenging people to not be so kind of like unaffected by it by them having the agency to do it after being prompted by knowing what the song is actually about after having really looked for it. It's like you only get rewarded for understanding what the track is about by actually looking for further context. Which, like, at face value makes sense, but a lot of music out there simply communicates what it wants to you so that you understand it. And I think that in general, they communicate the way they want to tell the story there. I don't know if the head voice or the pitch point of voice or like the note choices necessarily represent the kind of effect we're wanting with the actual storytelling itself, but I feel like technically it's proficient, sort of like on course for what Radiohead are about, and I do appreciate the effort to make a sort of like compelling vocal performance, you know. So I think the storytelling, I can kind of understand how they connect. That isn't a criticism. I think a lot of this is subjective, but that's just my personal sort of perspective on it. I can kind of understand how they come together. I don't know whether they're making fun of the people or using the kind of like fluffy higher voices to sort of belie the kind of like the heaviness of it. I'm not sure, but either way, moving on to the actual track itself, I feel like at 3 minutes 19, it's well fleshed out. You know, there's a lot to take in. The start of the track is really intriguing because you just have very little. Apart from like things sort of starting up and having a bit of glitchiness to them with like the guitar takes, turning the amp off and on again. A lot of bands wouldn't usually have that at all. They just get straight into the track, but Radiohead don't care. They're going to do things their way, and I have to kind of respect and appreciate that because they are taking the listener's attention for granted to a certain extent. But I also think, to be fair, it's like cool that they're doing something differently with the intro as opposed to getting straight into the music. And it's only on one side of the stereo field as well, so it's kind of like, oh, why is that doing that thing? You know, you kind of wonder, and then you get a bit of vocal take there, and then you go further into it and you get the full track. But the panning of elements within this track in general is sort of like really effective, predominantly because you have a musician that, or rather musicians that just don't care about a lot of the typical kind of like commitments we make within a recording process. We are comfortable having asymmetry with that one take on the right, with the kind of tippy taps being kind of blunt in the center in a way where it kind of pokes at you a little bit. There's a discomfort with how raw those drum takes are. There's a general lack of trying to have a polished sound to this song because they like that abrasive kind of roughness without making it noise rock. I think that there are effect chains still added, like they're very comfortable with it, some delay and reverb tails and stuff like that, and they're very deliberate about what they apply that sense of prettiness to. Again, there's a difference between how the vocals are done, how they're treated within the mix EQing sort of processing there. What's not overdoing it was, you know, in contrast to the guitar and drum parts. And you've just got this kind of like weird kind of flittery kind of cascading effect on the other side there, where it's kind of disconcerting, I suppose, because of a lack of things apart from that subtle ambience. It's like kind of like cutting into your eardrums a little bit with it, but in a really soothing way. I don't know how to describe that better. It's simply a situation where you're paying attention to it, but you kind of, if you're paying attention, like I didn't notice that on the first listen through. So I have to admit, it does have you can listen to this track more than once to pick up different things and have different experiences with it, which is a plus. When you got the kind of like tremolo kind of vibrato like guitars, like bop, 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 kind of the way the volume fluctuates there, that sort of explores or surrounds the stereo field really neatly, and I do like that it kind of flutters like that. It's very satisfying when you have that contrast with the positioning to things. I think that having the guitar on the right by itself, though, with a kind of a 16th note pulse with the percussion in the center, is just really sort of like curious. It's an intriguing prospect there. There's a sense of sameness, as if regardless of whatever angle we take, regardless of whatever we decide to discuss, things don't change until that point. Maybe it's sort of like to elicit a sense of things being about to adjust. You have that constant ticking regardless there. It's very uncomfortable. There's like a sense of urgency to it that is like kind of makes sense when you consider what the track is about. It's like a lot of it's kind of like soothing and gentle in the voices, when in reality things are just crashing down around you. And I think maybe the second half of the track is sort of trying to communicate that that's the kind of way it is. You know, like I like the work on the drums there when we kind of pick things up a little bit. We explore the cymbals, kicks and snares with sort of snare fills occasionally as well. And we like explore the toms in certain parts as well. There's a sense of pace and it's far more kind of vigorous. And again, when you consider the story lyrically, I appreciate it. There's some really cool ideas, some really clever decisions being made here compositionally. I mean, like, there's even that kind of absence of a guitar part for the majority of the track on the left side that is filled later on with that kind of screechy guitar tone there, like a siren sound kind of writhing in that little left can. And like it kind of goes between sort of more of a kind of a snare, kind of a 16th note pattern there, kind of working with the mild crescendo, back into like kind of a clean single coil, kind of bar chord oriented sort of riff as the vocals change their sort of frenetic approach. It's a lot to take in without being too overwhelming. I'm hearing it back now, and it is kind of exuberant in the kind of weirdest way. There's this kind of like really fuzzy, fizzy, prominent sound that we have on the right there that kind of sounds like a synth, and I don't know why that is there or what it adds to it. Is it just a really cool texture that they like the sound of it? Are they trying to have that as a further point of increased intensity volume-wise within the piece? Because it harmonizes really neatly. It's got this kind of parallel majorish kind of feel there with the note it ends on. But it kind of squeals at the end almost to sort of add a sense of real kind of brashness and angst to it, which I suppose, given how things are kind of building from that later point, it's fine. But there's a definite change in the perceived feel or like direction between the first part, where it's a lot more kind of somber sounding. There's a kind of almost hypnotic 7/8 feel to the way the kind of consistency of the clock pattern, like the watch ticking, and the guitar arpeggios there with very sort of inoffensive kind of jazzy guitar, sort of like clean guitar parts there with wonderful, like really beautiful reverbs on those kind of tones. And because there's no kind of like weird quirky chromatics there, because it's equal parts sort of misty as well as sort of plucked, it's like you're being lulled into a false sense of security. So like I think that outside of the performance there where the instruments were played quite well, there's just a lot more that I could discuss in here without making this a 30-minute video. Thematically, it's clearly sort of meant to represent the start being the kind of more sort of like under the spell of the apathy sort of situation there, as the time ticks forward into the upper sort of like intensity parts there with the distorted guitars, the kind of uncomfortable textures of the leads on the sides there, the changes of direction with the vocal takes to different perspectives potentially, the choir coming together and sort of adding a sense of urgency. With that, again, that fluctuating guitar take with the change in volume in between, inferring a change of scene. It's very sort of like, they clearly have a fundamental understanding of music theory and composition. It's a very tight performance overall. I think the kind of the build from start to finish is incredibly satisfying. It just takes a while to get it, but when you do, I'm not going to pretend that I love this track. I'm not going to pretend that I necessarily love any Radiohead song. But I think a lot of that just comes down to a similar feeling that I have with some musicians where it's not that they're not clever, because they are, but they want you to know that they're clever. There is this intended expectation from some musicians where it's like, no, you have to really dig to understand what this track's about. And it's kind of disconcerting because it runs counterpoint to a lot of the fundamentals of the music industry over the last 100 years in terms of what's successful. I think there is a lot of the people who enjoy Radiohead enjoy understanding the lore and understanding those hidden meanings, and they find a lot of joy in having repeated listenings and trying to sort of like decode it. But as a reviewer on a first listen basis, I just don't know if I would have gotten everything. That's not a criticism. It's just, if you hadn't read 1984, if you hadn't done that, if you hadn't had that background, you'd had a very different experience. And I don't think there's a way you could have had known the true meaning. But with previous experiences from Radiohead songs, when I've done reviews, I've had people call me out not knowing what the fuck I'm talking about. It's like, I couldn't have fucking known what I was talking about because it's not clear. There's extra shit you need to know. So, studio production, fantastically raw and organic. I love the overall kind of like feel of the piece. I think that the guitars, bass drums, any of the synth or sort of vocal patterns, the kind of glitchiness of the kind of guitar amps and everything like the start were really fun. I like the dynamic range to it, that things were at the same loudness and that it built over time. I appreciate the attention to detail with the effects change, reverbs and delays, etc. I think that they just captured a really tight performance from a band who wanted to have as much sort of flexibility as they could. I think the asymmetry with the panning and perspective of things within the stereo field was really clever there. When it came in at the end, you would have thought it'd be satisfying that it wasn't because of how kind of like brash a lot of things are, but then I'm not going to repeat myself saying things make sense when you got everything, but they only do if you have everything. And it's nice and loud without pumping when it gets to there, so it's, bus compression limiting is handled. Ultimately, I have a respect and an appreciation for what they tried to accomplish here, even if I didn't love it. I'm thankful that I got the chance to listen to more Radiohead. So thank you for watching my review of this track from Radiohead titled 2 + 2 = 5, hopefully. If you didn't enjoy what I had to say, at least hopefully you liked the song. And if you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SB Reviews. Spiderhands out.